All right, so this is chapter 6. I'm going to do a quick overview of the quiz first, and then I'll do the slides.
Yeah, do you have it?
What do you need?
I was just gonna.
No,
Never mind.
it's-
Never mind.
It's 8 zeros.
8 zeros. Okay.
Oh, you're.
Thank you.
That's very nice of you. What a nice guy. Sharing your hotspot.
I was gonna offer to. We can do it on Roger's time.
Oh, you guys. You're so giving.
I don't know.
You're all giving people. All right, this whole chapter, chapter 6, is on health services financing. And this is, all the chapters are fantastic and meaningful and all that kind of stuff. But this is one, it's worth to spend the time on. So if you have any questions, and even next week when we come back, if you have questions about it, let's talk about it. Because I really think a good understanding of this particular chapter, it's just about the most important chapter in the book, in my opinion, because it just works no matter where you go. So, in general, well, the book does a nice job of talking about what healthcare financing's role in the United States, as well as some very functional things. So, for the quiz, we'll go over it in the slides, but also in the book. Know what the central role of health service financing is, especially for the United States. We've talked about it before, but know how people access health benefits in the United States, which I could ask you. So what makes the United States unique compared to other countries on how people access their health benefits?
Their employers.
Exactly. And it's a really big deal, and it's a complicating factor for true system functionality. Because remember, if I had my white paper and stuff like that, I would draw it at that triangle. You know, it's not a perfect market because we don't depend on health service and health coverage based on what the hospital or the provider would provide. It's based on what our benefit package covers, and the employer plays a really big role in how that works because they're negotiating it all the time. And even the most recent changes in the Affordable Care Act, which does anybody know some of the most recent changes in the Affordable Care Act? One side is saying this is a really, really good thing, and the other side is saying, oh my gosh, you're wrecking it.
The individual mandate?
Yep, one is the individual mandate, and then also the required elements to be part of a benefit plan to be provided under the Affordable Care Act. The original Affordable Care Act rules said that if you wanted to be offered, and for it to be legal, basically you had to have a basic package of services. So think of it as a basket of goods. It had to have apples and oranges and bananas and kumquats and certain fruit that was mandated in there. Well, it turns out that basket of fruit is really, really expensive. So the current administration says we need to keep that basket of fruit in there, but not everybody can afford to provide that basket of fruit, and clearly not everybody can afford to purchase that basket of fruit because we had so many people forego purchasing healthcare benefits in lieu of spending the money on well, it was a tax, but a fine, if you knew that. So legislation has released or relieved some of the restrictions on that, so that maybe you could, if you qualify, you could buy a fruit that doesn't have kumquats because you've never had a kumquat, you're never going to eat a kumquat. Don't force. It's a fruit. How about a kiwi? Okay, so maybe you don't like kiwi, so take the kiwi out so you don't have to buy the kiwi. So that's a big change. Moral hazard, we'll talk about it in here, but know what moral hazard is. Know what technology's effect on reimbursement has been over time. That's a big thing. You could probably guess at that one. Know the difference between demand side rationing and supply side rationing. That's really important. Plus, it's just interesting. We'll talk about national health expenditures and how it's calculated. And we talked a little bit about a gross domestic product, things like that too, but know more about that. Insurance, we're going to talk about insurance in general. And insurance is different than health benefits, but know what true insurance is and what it's for. There's different kinds of health insurance. There's public health insurance, voluntary health insurance, mandatory health insurance. Know what the differences between those are. Know what community rating is. Risk assessment. The Affordable Care Act defined how benefit providers could assess risk. So find that section in there on what method of risk assessment the Affordable Care Act and what other types of insurance uses. For instance, like an example would be experience rating. Another one would be community rating. I'm giving examples about this. Know what a good advantage of group insurance would be, and what self-insurance is. Know what ERISA is, E-R-I-S-A. That's a good one. Cost shifting, know what that is. Know the difference between what a premium is, a deductible is, and co-insurance is, and what first dollar coverage is versus benefit dollar. Also know what a co-payment is. So you guys all know this stuff, you're not writing it down. The Rand Health Insurance Experiment was a big, it was an experiment on how populations would respond to different types of insurance. The Rand Corporation, which is a big think tank, know about that. Medigap policies, know what a Medigap policy is. Know what the donut hole is. Know what a pre-existing condition is. The Affordable Care Act had a whole lot to do and a lot to say about pre-existing conditions, so you'll want to know about that. There's also bronze, silver, and gold and platinum health plans, which is kind of those are that basket of fruit. Know what those are. Size of employer is important. Under the Affordable Care Act, in order to purchase insurance through an exchange, you have to be income qualified. Know what that income qualification is. Know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, which you probably already do. Who does Medicare cover?
Individuals that are 65 or older and have a disability or renal stage disease.
And who does Medicaid cover?
Less fortunate.
People who can't
Yeah.
afford any insurance.
Yep, exactly. Know what MedPAC is, M-E-D, capital P-A-C. Know the difference between Medicare Part A, Part B, Part C, and Part D.
I just learned all of this today.
Did you? Oh, it's good stuff, isn't it?
At work you did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Know what SMI is? Capital S, capital M, capital I. Know what that is? Ooh, yeah, Medicaid matching. Medicaid is a state, we'll get into it, but Medicaid is managed and governed by the state. Medicare is a federal program, so. But what a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people don't, but now you will, is that Medicaid gets a lot of its money, up to 50% of its money from the feds. So the feds collect their money through taxes and then match on Medicaid during the Medicaid program. And how do you think the feds use that relationship to their advantage?
So you're asking, can you reword that?
So you're a federal lawmaker.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get a state to do something.
Mm-hmm.
You could use education funds or Medicaid funds to try to get the state to do something you want them to do. How do you think they would do that?
For incentives?
Could be incentives. Wow.
You're gonna take it away.
Yeah, what they do is the feds will do a mandate on if you, yeah, it is. But it's usually taken away. Like, for example, back when drinking age. It used to be that the drinking age in Wisconsin was 18. Drinking age in Illinois was 21. federal government wanted a standard drinking age across the whole country. They used things like Medicaid matching. You wouldn't qualify for full Medicaid matching unless your drinking age was 21. So it's like, if I want all the money I can get from the federal government,
Kind of bribing.
well, is it a bribe
Strong
or is it an incentive? I don't know. You say tomato, I say tomato. Highway funds, that was another one. It's another example where a lot of money, and this is great because this is really political right now. I don't know if you see ads out there, but they're talking about, and I don't want to get into a political conversation other than we have to, but it's interesting, there's ads out there that are blaming the state government for the condition of the roads. But what's interesting is that most of the roads that they show are in cities. The county doesn't have any, or the state doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the roads and the quality of roads in the cities. The state only has responsibility for the highways, for state highways. And if it's a federal highway, if you wonder why there's state highways and federal highways, it's where you can draw money in order to fix them and maintain them. So I-94, which is an interstate, it's a federal interstate highway because it moves through, well, practically you go coast to coast on it. Much like Medicaid funds are used to leverage, it's like, okay, speed limits. If you wanted to get all the money you could get from the federal government to help maintain your highways, it would behoove you to adopt whatever the federal speed limit mandates on it. And that was a really big deal when the speed limits in Wisconsin were, I think it was 70 or 60 or something like that. But the federal government wanted a standard speed limit of 55 across the whole country. Well, it is, but, they thought for safety, the theory was that the slower you go, the safer you'll be. And they wanted, so what they did is they used matching limits, much like Medicaid, to motivate states to drop the speed limit to 55, because they wanted to get the money to fix the roads. So, more information than you wanted, but that's how it works.
Is that why it went from 65 to 70?
Well, isn't it speed
On the
limit is
freeway?
70, but a minimum is 55,
Minimum
It is.
45.
45?
45. Well, it turned out that over time, the 55 speed limit didn't warrant anymore.
I'll still win fast.
Right. Well, yeah, people still went fast. Plus, cars have gotten way safer, and it turned out that people would speed anyway, and it was a little unsafe for people that were doing 55 when everybody else was doing 75, and it put people at risk. So they kind of used up on it.
Good gas mileage.
What's that?
Well, 55, you get good gas mileage.
You get great gas mileage. That was a big incentive too in the energy crunch in the 70s. They wanted, not only was it safety, it was for oil conservation.
What do you value more, your money or your time?
It is. I haven't. Every car is different, but I'm not sure where the sweet spot is on the car I'm currently driving. But it is. It's like, okay, I get killer gas mileage at 55 or 60. At what point does my mileage totally tank? I haven't figured that out yet. Oh, yeah, the lower the possible.
Yeah, on high speed.
It is. So, okay, more information than you probably want. But, so my new driver, my son, it is possible to wreck a manual transmission with a new driver, just